Hey guys, this is Stacy from eatthebite.com, and today we're making Claudia Fleming's fantastic Guinness Stout ginger cake. We'll first bring molasses and Guinness beer to a boil, then add some baking powder and marvel over the rising foam that may or may not overtake your kitchen. Next, we're going to mix all of our dry ingredients together. Then we're going to whisk our eggs and sugar, followed by some neutral oil. We're going to grate a little fresh ginger, of course, add the Guinness and molasses to the eggs and sugar, whisk the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients, add the fresh ginger, then we'll pour that all into a 9-inch buttered cake pan. Then we're going to bake it in the oven. Once it's cooled, we're going to flip the cake, peel off the parchment paper, hit it with a little powdered sugar, and I served mine with ginger ice cream caramel sauce and some orange zest. So, let me show you how to make it. The recipe starts with heating up molasses and Guinness beer in a pot, and you should do this first because it has to cool down to room temperature before you mix the rest of the ingredients together. We're going to measure out the molasses first, then slowly pour the Guinness at an angle so the foam doesn't pile up. Then we're going to add that to the pot with the molasses. I'll give it a little stir here. But then we're going to move everything over to the stovetop, where I'll give it another mix, and then we're going to heat this on medium to high heat until we bring it to a boil. Once it's boiling, we're going to turn the heat off, and that's when we're going to add the baking soda. It's important to use a somewhat deep pot here because once you add the baking soda, a foam will rise up almost to the top of the pot. I put mine on the back burner and I let that get down to room temperature, which does take about 45 minutes. Once the molasses and beer are back at room temperature, I started with getting the dry ingredients in a large bowl. So first the flour, then ground ginger, baking powder, cinnamon, ground cloves. The recipe called for fresh nutmeg, but I didn't have that, so I used the jarred stuff, and some cardamom. Next, we'll whisk all of our dry ingredients together until everything is well combined, and then I'm going to set that aside and get another bowl for the eggs. We'll crack 3 room temperature eggs to start, and then we're going to add the white sugar. And then we also need some packed dark brown sugar too, so I spooned it into my measuring cup and then pressed down until it was tightly packed. Then I added that to the bowl, and now it's time to whisk it all together. And you're going to whisk that until it looks approximately like this. And then I'm going to start whisking in my neutral oil. I'm using vegetable oil for this, and I'm going to whisk that until everything is well blended. Now I'm going to set this aside to grate some fresh ginger. I'm cutting a piece of ginger from a larger chunk of ginger, and we're going for something that's about the size of your thumb. There it is. I just used my kitchen peeler to get that skin off, and I'd recommend a microplane to grate the ginger or the finest side of your box grater for this. Once all that ginger is grated, we're going to talk about what kind of pan to use for this cake. I've got 3 options here. A bundt cake, which makes a beautiful cake, but see my notes in the blog post to proceed with that. Then there's a standard loaf pan. If you go with this option, you really only want to fill this up about 3/4 of the way and make a mini cake with the rest. And I found the best option was this 9-inch aluminum cake pan that's also 2 inches deep. And this is what I used. So first, I traced a parchment circle with a pencil, and then I cut it out with my kitchen shears. I grabbed some softened butter with paper towel, and then I thoroughly buttered the bottom and sides of the cake pan. Then I placed my parchment circle on the bottom, and I buttered the top of that as well. Next, I'm adding the molasses and beer to the eggs, sugar, and oil bowl. We'll mix that till it's well combined. And then after that, we'll take our wet mixture and whisk it into the dry mixture half at a time. You just want to give it a stir like this. And then we'll add the remaining wet mixture and mix everything together until it's well blended. And finally, we're going to add the fresh ginger into the mix, and you want to make sure you give that a good whisk here so we can break apart any ginger clumps. And now we are ready to pour the batter right into our cake pan. After you're done pouring, you do want to make sure you scrape that bowl. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap it on the counter a couple of times. And then we are going to bake this in a 350-degree oven for about 50 minutes. Then, once the cake is cooled, I ran a small sharp knife around the edge like you see here. After that, I'm going to cover the top with a plate and then carefully flip the cake over like you see here. Now, what I like to do is let gravity do its thing for a few seconds, and I can sort of tell by tapping the bottom of the pan that the cake has left the pan. So now we're going to very slowly pull the pan away. And then we'll very slowly and carefully pull away that parchment paper. There's a lot of things you can do with this cake. I'm going to sift some powdered sugar over the top. I'm also going to use a little bit of orange zest on top as well. I've got a really fantastic ginger ice cream I got at Whole Foods for the side, as well as this incredible caramel sauce that I also picked up at Whole Foods. You can also go with canned whipped cream for this, which I tried when I tested the recipe, and this works great too. So I went ahead and zested my little oranges. You probably don't need any more than a tablespoon or so. Then I cut a slice of cake for my photo shoot. I gave the cake a light dusting of powdered sugar. And let's take a closer look at our finished product. So this is Claudia Fleming's Guinness Stout Ginger Cake with ginger ice cream, caramel sauce, and orange zest. The cake is phenomenal, and I am going to leave you with my live Eat the Bite commentary as I devour a little slice of heaven. Thanks so much for watching. All right, I'm going to cut one other little tiny sliver, so I can't eat it right now. I really want to eat that right now, so let me do that. I don't want a whole scoop here because I have to do another scoop for my Eat the Bite. All right, so I'm going to do that. It says you can warm it slightly, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to put like a little, or a big blob like that. Nice. Now I'm going to take a little bit of that, lemon zest. Orange zest. Oh, this is a good practice run for the actual real way I'm going to do it. Okay, so here's my little sample so I can eat the bite. Oh my God, I cannot wait to take a bite of this. This is going to be so good. Oh man. Oh, the caramel really brings that to life too. This came out much better than the test recipe I did. First of all, if you cook it in a bundt pan, the instructions say 1 hour cooking time, which is not accurate. I overcooked it. Yeah, it was almost slightly burned, but not quite. Almost. And I know my oven runs hot, so I should have taken it out at 50 minutes. But when I test someone else's recipe for the first time, I usually do it exactly as written, and then I modify. And I will tell you that doing it in the cake pan is absolutely incredible. This came out so good, and don't skip the buttering because it's going to stick. The bundt pan, I stupidly used spray, and it was really an experiment too to see if will spray work. It doesn't, and it will stick. And that's a bummer when you go to all this trouble. But reducing the cooking time, changing the pan, I think this cake pan, 9-inch cake pan was perfect. Wipe it with soft butter, then put your parchment circle down, wipe the parchment circle with butter as well. And even though parchment can peel off on its own, I will say that butter made it even easier and less like anxiety because you're so worried even peeling it really slowly, if a little chunk comes out, you're in trouble. This is a moister cake than the first one I made. This is so moist. And I made a mistake when I tested it too. Yeah, you're supposed to mix the eggs, the white sugar, the brown sugar together, and then whisk in the oil, and I forgot to do that. So I whisked the oil in after I put everything together. I'm like, oh my God, I forgot the oil. That could have contributed to the not as moist result. I gotta tell you, I'm loving these little zest peels in here. That just gives it a little extra something. I love this combination. You could use plain vanilla too, like a good quality, like a Haagen-Dazs or something. If you can't find ginger ice cream, or if you think it's too much ginger. I think it's fine. Like, I'm not over gingered right now. No. And I have to set up that plate. Well, I have to get my whole table set up, then scoop the ice cream at the last minute and run outside to try and get a picture before it melts. That's what I do. It is 30 degrees out though, so I got weather a little bit on my side. Okay. The caramel sauce is absolutely insane. That is really good. Look, I was at Whole Foods when I had to buy a few things. So I had to buy the expensive caramel sauce, but man, that is a treat right there.
It was like 10 bucks. I know that's crazy. It's so stupid. I can't believe I spent that much on caramel sauce, but I did. I highly recommend you make this cake. It's a little bit spicy, not hot spicy, but like it's got the ginger. Oh my God, the cinnamon. Oh, the cloves, the nutmeg, all of it. It's so delicious. And I highly recommend you make it. It's like, it's dense, but it's moist. It's just absolutely delicious. And I think even outside of the holiday season, this would be a delicious cake to make. Okay. That's my sales pitch for you to make this delicious cake by Claudia Fleming, who's an amazing baker.